All right, thanks everyone. Welcome everyone to this session. Uh, I'm going to spend the next 25 to 30 minutes on this topic called maintenance and reliability mission vision, and how does it link to business excellence, right? So I think most of you would have heard this uh, vision and mission statements. I'm not going to go and explain how to write vision statements, but I'm going to talk about the key things. What is the objective and takeaway from this session today? Hopefully at the end of 25 minutes or 30 minutes, we'll see how to get this mission vision, which primarily have this, some of the dimensions which are listed in the left, like things like life cycle analysis, defect elimination, human reliability, operation excellence, and culture. Some of the presenters in the couple of presentations before talked about culture. It was very nice to see there is a connectivity happening in these workshops. So we have to see how can I get this information from the left, which is called the mission vision, and have an impactful or a meaningful transformation into what I call as the business drivers. So the business drivers will vary based on your industry, based on your facility and supply chain directions. It may be profitability. You may use return on net assets, RONA. It may be customer satisfaction. It may be market competitiveness and shareholder values and many more. So the key point of this discussion today, I'm going to take some of the pointers on the left and see how we done transformation to the right. So based on all these are based on my practical experience from different industries. I've been working in the last 34 years, and I would like to share some of the key insights and how we can go from there. And so let me take about the life cycle analysis as one of the first lever for business excellence. So as we know that asset life cycle processes, we got different phases as listed in the left columns. We can see it has to start from evaluating the project life cycle, and then evaluating the design aspects of the asset life cycle. And we also go into the stages of procurement, fabrication, installation, commissioning, which we all know that very well. But operate, maintain, which takes bulk of the time and the life of the asset, and of course until decommissioning. The key thing we want to put here is each of these pillars on the left have identified, dedicated, detailed work processes, which we have to consider in any success towards business excellence. So in this case, some of the key pointers, how do I do transformation to business value? Or am I doing asset life cycle costing at the time of project design phase? For example, I've seen projects where they selected, I give an example of a hydrogen compressor, a reciprocating compressor in one of the facilities where I used to work in the past. They selected this compressor. It was like cheaper in cost because the project cost wants to be lower. And they presume the reliability will be 1.5 times because it is made from local manufacturers, not from original equipment manufacturers or the traditional manufacturers. So they went and purchased this, and they found a lot of challenges. They had to spend a lot of money doing the maintenance and operating of this asset, versus the project spent a little money on the initial project phase and they went away with it. So that could be a common problem or possible things happening in your facilities. So what are we doing is we need to have this discipline of asset lifecycle costing and asset investment optimization. So what is my investment decision at the project lifecycle stage? Am I having dual systems, standbys, hot standby, cold standby? Am I going to have an inventory in my stores? So what is my policy? I have to set it up front and not during the operate and maintain phase. We set up policies during operate maintenance phase for all of these, but I think it's a little late in the game. Maintaining the healthy assets, and I have to put upfront in the design phase, even well before procurement, I'm talking, what is my asset reliability expected from this facility? Is it 95, 98% or 85%? Accordingly, I'm going to go back to my decision of procurement, which is going to follow, and the fabrications aspects and so on. Of course, we have to respect the lowest cost to business. It doesn't mean cheap. It is a optimized best cost to the business to get the values. So these are some of the levers I would put, and there are a lot of examples we can talk as we get more time in the next sessions. The next one is the defect elimination. We have been talking, I think Joe Levitt spoke about that as well, and that was interesting picturesque discussions we had. So I'm going to go a little bit on the couple of definitions. As you know, a defect is deviation from perfection, full stop, right? So anything which deviates from perfection, we call it a defect. And defect elimination is eliminating the thing or that is contributing or creating the defect. I mean, what happens is most of the clients I visit as part of my job, they find, oh, what is the defect elimination bearing? That's not, bearing is not a defect elimination. So the defect is caused because of, poor lubrication oil quality or insufficient lubrication, for example, right? So that is what we have to try to see, what is my failure mode happening there, damage codes and cost codes, and then eliminate that. And then I can save my bearing, for example, in this case. So defect elimination is key. As you know, there are several sources of defect, and the common tendency, especially, has been that defect is always from maintenance or equipment. The fact is that it is only a small contribution portion to the defects, whereas the defects comes from spare parts, workmanship quality, the skills, the competency, the operations of the asset. How is good I'm operating my assets and having the basic equipment care for the assets. And of course, the design aspects come into picture. If I don't do anything, if you look at the picture there, there's a tab in the bottom, which shows defects, and then it goes to repair. I just keep on that. But if I'm going to apply the concepts of planned maintenance, preventive maintenance, and predictive maintenance, and then I can see that the bubble on the equipment failures, it is becoming into small droplets. And because I'm doing some proactive approach. So this is going to apply or replicate to other aspects of materials and workmanship and operations as I do other aspects of the concepts of defect elimination. So again, what is the link between maintenance and reliability process and supporting defect elimination? So one of the typical vision for maintenance would be in the left, as I put, is focus on repairing the failures. And the key thing is efficiency and effectiveness. So basically, mean time to repair is one of the key performance indicator I'll put on the maintenance side for the vision. On the right side, if I go, I'm going to say eliminating the failure. I mean, there's a key difference you can see. Reliability is focusing on eliminating failure, whereas maintenance is focusing on keeping the equipment conditions as is and just repairing it. And the second in the reliability is improving the performance is the key and not just status quo. So mean time between failure optimization. Okay, I need to increase my mean time between failure, and I identify my failure modes. I identify my effectiveness of root cause analysis. We saw that as the first presentation. Very nice. I mean, human factors, systemic factors, equipment failures and factors, and so on. So we have to apply those concepts and get into this reliability vision as we go forward. The next section is talking about human reliability. I just want to put this slide, which I liked. What are we doing here is basically there are two things we call effectiveness and efficiency. And the effectiveness talks us about proactive maintenance practices. And then in the efficiency, we're talking about work management, planning and scheduling, coordination, optimization. So our target is to be on the green on the fourth quarter on the top. You can see the long-term strategic focus should be do the right things the right way. That is high performers, as we always speak. But where are we in this box? I mean, we are doing a lot of things for sure. We are doing things. Is it the right things or the wrong things? Is it the right way or the wrong way? So it is a good thing. We always want each of us to know which box we stand. And it is not wrong to have a box in yellow, one of these yellow, so that we can get better and improvement and optimize our status where we are. Of course, if you're going to be in the red for a new organization or a low performing company, which is more reactive maintenance mode, there is a lot of work to be done for sure. And we have to work on the effectiveness of the maintenance processes and also the efficiency of the people management and contractor management. So this is a combination of human reliability, work process, and it goes together. Of course, one of the indicators for this is the key performance indicators. We've been talking in one of the presentation as well. What are those which is going to highlight to me and tell me that, hey, this is my efficiency is in the 60% range, my effectiveness is 80%, and so on. So there are a lot of dimensions of KPIs which will come to this picture. So when you talk about operation excellence, what is the meaning of that? And how does maintenance and reliability function enables operations excellence? So one of the key drivers for effective maintenance and reliability program, if you see in the left, is A few things I've highlighted here is the reliability structures, roles, and responsibilities. Yes, we have a big team. The client has got a big set of people, like 30 people or 60 people. Do they have clarity in the roles? Some of the things we have found common is the planner and the scheduler are the same, and they do the same job. They just do scheduling and they call it planner. The supervisor is doing the planning and he doesn't supervise the people, and so on. The engineer is doing the job of a senior supervisor. So there's a lot of disparity in the roles and responsibilities. So one of the first things we would like to look at is how is the structure in your organization, and how are the roles and responsibilities being demarcated, and is it very clear, and the people have been trained for that particular job they're supposed to do. So the maintenance and reliability, the other classic example is we're talking about the role of a gatekeeper or a operations coordinator, for example, if I want to get the quality notifications in SAP system or Maximo system, for example. So who is doing that, and what type of roles he's going to play, and what type of authority he has got in that particular position? Who is in charge for budgeting process? We always say that the budgeting is maintenance manager, but I think the best practice is the plant director or the plant manager should be accountable for the budget for maintenance in the plant. Process optimization. I mean, are we having a standard process? As we spoke in the previous slide on efficiency and effectiveness, do you have a standardized work process for maintenance and reliability improvement in your process or facility? Do you have a standard definitions of KPIs, standard templates for measuring these KPIs and outputs? Are you making decisions based on data? Are you having quality data? I mean, I can bring in fancy softwares and tools and linkages to my current CMMS, but is my data quality high? I share one example in one of my Six Sigma project I did a few years before in one of my clients was on data quality. I found the data quality was like 55% only. And the remaining 45%, for example, I don't know where I spent the money. I know I spent in this plant, but I could not attribute to which equipment class or which functional location, or which even it is instrument or mechanical or electrical and so on. So it was very difficult to do any cost optimization. I could not get where my failures are coming from. It comes from this equipment, but is it because of what is a failure mode which is attributing to these failures? There are a lot of equipments which did not have equipment numbers and goes into sort of blanket sort of things. So sort of those granularity in the CMMS data is very important. Of course, the last but not least, the capability development. How good is my skills analysis? Am I having a skill gaps in my organization? What am I doing? Yes, I can identify skill gaps and tell, oh, my people are not trained or not capable or efficient. But what am I doing to bring it to speed? Do I have a plan like a 2 years plan, 5 years plan, or a 10 years plan? So that is important for driving effectiveness for maintenance reliability. Some of the outcomes we put on the right. I always try to put this classification, tangible and measurable, and non-tangible and measurable, non-tangible, non-measurable. It is good to have these categories in front of us because some of them we call as hard savings in Six Sigma language. The first one is definitely it's going to hit my bottom line. The second one, non-tangible, and the third one is sort of, it is good to have, but it's going to enable my first one called tangible in a way for sure. So some of the things in tangible we're talking about straight is OEE, as you're familiar, overall equipment effectiveness, availability, utilization, uptime, you call different words. Less cost on unplanned events, mean time between failures, and several targets you can put there, but these are some of the key things we use. Non-tangible, measurable is work process compliance. Like I put the efficiency graph, we can put some 1, 2, 3, 4, which quadrant you stand, 4x4 matrix. Or operators doing TPM, or they doing the basic equipment care facilities by themselves. How good is your planning and scheduling? One of the sweet spots of improvement in any maintenance organization is the planning and scheduling, as we spoke. Am I having a detailed job packages for all my critical activities? Is it very clearly documented on what is my strategy to do the repairs and how to do it and who will be doing it in scheduling? Again, the non-tangible, we're talking about roles and responsibilities, collaboration, competency, and the morale is very interesting. I mean, we bring this sort of as part of the culture transformation. We saw the culture in one of the presentation, the morale of the people. How is it? Are you measuring We cannot measure directly and put a number like morale is 45, 65, 80%, but at least we can feel the pulse in the organization by talking to the people, by talking to different sets of functions and see how they are feeling to work in your facility, or they're feeling very comfortable to come every day in the morning and go back happily in the evening, and so on. Of course, this is as professionals in these sessions, we are familiar with this. I just wanted to put a couple of charts which talking about enablers for operational excellence. Some of the things we'll be doing like a PF curve and the reliability bathtub curves. And again, the question comes can we do this PF curve and really get a graph like this and monitor this? Yeah, of course, we have things like predictive analysis like YBulls and reliability, RAM analysis, and all those things are going to come with these numbers. But I think my experience and advice says that the first thing is the quality of data I'm going to input in this analysis is very critical. And the second thing is, what is my target expected? I need to set that with my business management teams and say that, okay, this is my value I need to achieve. And today I'm standing at PF interval of very low, my MTBF is low, and so on. And then we go from there, how to improve. So it's not that I just do a graphic. I see some clients, they have these softwares, fancy ones, and then they do PF curve, and they do like, like a mass production, like my PF interval for class A equipments or class B equipments. It has got everything inside it under the sun, like pumps, motors, transformers, valves, you name it, you have it. But that's what we're asking is, can we have some detailed of by asset wise and go from there? And again, the getting things like beta values less than 1 or equal to 1 or greater than 1, talking about your failure rates and probability of failure. Again, we can start with some of the critical equipments and see where is my next point of failure and when is it likely going to happen. So based on statistical data, of course, if my last 5 years data or 10 years data can be fed into my system or a software, I can be able to predict at least to a certain extent. And accordingly, I'm going to adjust my preventive maintenance optimization strategies and my reliability and maintenance strategies. So the key output from this chart is, am I able to do some changes to my strategies, which is going to help optimize my business excellence? So that is what we are talking about the topic. So my vision is great. I need to have I need to have my PF curve, for example, predict my failure ahead of time. That is great. So what is my output? I'm going to have a better reliability by 1%, 2%, 5%. And what is the dollar value it is going to translate into? That's what the business heads are interested in. From a cultural transformation view, I just got one slide. I thought I'd just share my thoughts around this. So we got some of the key dimensions around the culture. We're talking about process, people, and strategy, if you want to categorize in a very broad category. And if I drill down this process, of course, we got this thing called business process mapping. So what is your as-is work process? And what are the current state challenges you have today in your process today for maintenance and reliability? Right? It can be a routine maintenance, if you want to call a reliability process, or maybe improving your asset optimization or uptime increase process, and so on. And how do I optimize these gaps and bring it to a future state where I can get efficiency gains and meet my business goals? So that is very, very critical, because how do I get my future state of efficiency? So processes is key. Of course, we have to have people to do this process steps. Again, we talked roles and responsibilities between operations, maintenance, procurement, and various other teams involved in this process. And of course, we have to involve the teams of contractor management as well, which is mostly ignored because they're not having direct impact. But one of the key impacts in some of the sites I've seen is the volume of contractors they use are very huge. And we have to engage them in the processes as well as we go into this integration for a culture. From the Asian context, I've seen that engaging contractors is picking up its pace, but I think we are trying to build that as we progress, not only the in-house people or the staff, but also the contractors working for your supporting reliability and maintenance efforts. Suppose a strategy, are you having a strategy at an asset level? And what I mean by that is I can have strategies for reliability like predictive maintenance, preventive maintenance, and of course, run to failure. When I go to clients, I ask them, do you have run to failure? They say, no, I don't do that. But I think we have to look carefully and say that some of these non-critical equipments can have this run to failure, which is not difficult to maintain or, easy, low cost maintenance so called. So am I having a specific asset level strategy? What I mean by that is, am I having a critical equipment criticality? I think we saw that in one of the presentations again. The criticality determination with the 5x5 matrix, for example, or 4x4 is very critical, and we say high, medium, low. I think the most critical what we learned in this process is what are the attributes which is going to decide that high, medium, and low? And what is my financial numbers I'm going to put there? Is my losses going more than $1 million or maybe $500,000? So that all depends on your asset size, your customers, your supply chain demand, and all those factors. So we have to make a careful decision on that numbering, and then we can run these tools and software and make a quick decision on assets. Once I have my critical assets, then I make a category like, whether I want to do a reliability-based maintenance or reliability-centered maintenance or risk-based inspections, or, you can call SIF or SIL for interlocks and instrumentations and so on. So there are a lot of strategies we have to develop for depending on different equipments. And then value, these are some of the value levers. And again, is it in the line of sight? Whatever I do in my reliability strategy, is it in the line of sight to what I have to achieve as a business goal? That is more key. Again, the line of sight I put there as one of the key is also an ISO 45000 terminology between the management and down to the working level. This is a little bit busy chart. I'm not going to go through everything, but it's good. I'll be sharing this as part of this presentation. But maintenance and reliability have got a huge part to play in the financial performance of any business. So if we see, if I want to go from the right to the right side has got a lot of characteristics of maintenance and reliability function. Like, we got a breakdown maintenance, planned maintenance or equipment startup, waiting time, scrap, equipment depreciation, labor cost, and many factors you can see. And if I want to go to the second from the right, that's got this time, availability, performance, and defect, which is going to translate into your OEE matrix. It's a multiplication of those three factors we are seeing: time, performance, and defect. And of course, I put one more below the OEE called as the technical capabilities in your organization. So that's going to be mapped to your competency and skills, how good they are and how good they're going to help support your productivity and increase your sales volume in a way. Below the defect rate, we have this fixed cost and variable cost. As you know that different companies have this demarcation, and are we clear on how to optimize our costs from spare parts or labor for maintenance, in-house labor and contractor labor as well. Of course, the variable cost comes from energy consumption and raw material consumption. And we like to put that because that is also going to play a role in some of the high-speed critical reliability equipments like energy consumption from turbines or steam generators and boilers and so on. Steam leakages, for example, insulation quality, for example. So all these things are going to contribute a lot from maintenance and reliability towards variable cost. So the fixed cost and variable cost will be attributing to the production cost, which is also contributing to your profit margin. And if you go down the left, it's a profit, and then goes to return on net assets. This is one way of putting a waterfall chart, if you want to call, from right to left, talking about each aspects of dimensions of maintenance and reliability impacting you. I got one more thing on the RONA. It's called the investment. How good is my working capital? And am I going to have some new equipment? Am I having obsolescence management taken into consideration? And all those aspects of capital project management is important. All right. This chart is again typical significant business values we achieve from maintenance and reliability. These are some illustrative numbers based on the past projects we've done from my company. So some of the additional inputs, some of the levers we got on the left, value levers like additional output on production, operation excellence, and mechanical integrity, for example. Additional input, the first one we're calling about increased asset utilization, like, by deploying risk-based maintenance approaches and improving my equipment OEE and standardized maintenance KPIs and performance indicators, I can get a 5 to 10% improvement in terms of business value. Again, operational excellence, as we spoke earlier, we're going to talk about labor, productivity, skills, materials, optimum spare parts. I don't have too much of capital spare parts and increase my inventory cost and holding cost. And risk-based spares assessment. Basically, am I having the critical spares at the time I need to have my spare part in hand? And of course, infrastructure, we're talking about networking activities with business and sites, the customer and supply chain activities, how the maintenance and reliability influences the other functions in the business and sites, outsourcing of inventories and so on. For example, how is my maintenance going to help my supply chain in terms of the product storage tanks, integrity, and go from there. Mechanical integrity, as we know, it is one of the key pillars of process safety management, one of the favorite topics to my heart as well. And we had to apply and ensure that the integrity and inspection programs are aligned with the corporate directions and goals. And then it is going to have saving potential from ensuring that I don't have any incidents or environmental challenges or any issues because of that. So integrating inspection programs with the demand planning, that around 5 to 10% optimization. So these are some key levers we can get from this process. I think in conclusion, I think basically what I mean is getting towards the mission, vision, and values, and to transfer that or transformation into business excellence. The key fundamentals are going to be, the first one is the leadership. We need to have the top management leadership buy-in to convert my mission, vision to business values. I always ask the teams, is maintenance and reliability considered as part of a business function? Or is it just an expense function? It should be an asset to the company. And what is the culture we're going to have as part of leadership, as part of employees, as part of contractors? Are they having the same line of sight as leadership and say the same accountability and ownership to support their vision? So the leadership can have a vision and say, okay, I need to have perfect reliability, but then we need to have this support from culture. Do I have respect for procedures? I use this word because from the maintenance team, I can have fantastic procedures in my library sitting, but nobody refers it. Checklists, I don't use my checklist because I got this complacency. I've been doing this for so many years and I'm fine with it and so on. What is my respect for procedures and what is my implementation quality, which is going to impact my dimensions of mission and vision. Target performance and key performance indicators. Do I have a clear direction how to achieve this target performance and go from there?
Yeah, you have one question there.
What should be the stock life of an equipment? We have experienced equipment lying in stores for years and years under heading critical. This is fantastic. This is what we meant by inventory management. So one of the critical indicators we do for spare parts management is inventories which are not moving, or so-called we call dead inventory in the stock, which has not moved for 3 to 4 years and above. There are reasons, could be reasons because the project team or the maintenance reliability teams have procured these spare parts and kept it in the warehouse, but you have not used it, or maybe there was a strategy was different in the past 5 years and the strategy, business strategy has changed today. So there could be a lot of reasons why this is happening. The two things we could do or suggest we normally do is make sure that you do a review one more time of the criticality of the spare parts, critical assets, critical spare parts assessment, and then make sure that everything, whatever I need is available, and whatever is you feel that it is extra or lying in your warehouse, we have to make a business decision carefully to say that, okay, I'm going to do two things I'll do. One is whether I can share it with other of my facilities within my corporation, or whether I can dispose that to other companies, get some, whatever revenue, or finally we have to make a financial decision with the management to say that it's going to be a write-off. Again, I'll be balancing that with risk. I'll be balancing that with my holding cost of inventory and the company corporate procedures and compliance policies, and then we can go with that decision. I think that's it for now.